So we are live streaming now. Guys, you can present L.I.K 31.
Yes, sir. Please confirm if it is visible.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, jurors. This is architecture. However, we don't just look at architecture; we live in it. This year's LIK This year's LIK theme was infill architecture, where it was expected from us to document sites, projects, and design that best represent the connection between the context and architecture. While understanding infill architecture, we talked about interventions which may lead to betterment or destruction. The one which make better use of existing resources is what we understand as an infill. Similarly, interventions made in a sustainable way by sticking to roots and creating something new, which can preserve the essence of the context, can be termed as infill. Therefore, every build form got its special place relating to its context, where factors such as local character, social identity, materiality, regionalism, and sensibility becomes important to consider. Furthermore, we went up for the selection of our site and landed up to Kanha Earth Resort, which is located in the vicinity of Kanha National Park and aims to promote preservation and conservation of the forest habitat. Also, the site as an intervention proof to be for the betterment of the ecosystem there. The land was initially ruled by the Gonds and hence named as Gondwana. The tribes practiced the slash and burn cultivation, which later led to the cutting of major tree species like sal, sesame. Hence, official authorities imposed several regulations and declared the area as reserved forest. The reserve forest later got named itself as the Kanha National Park that led the government to launch schemes for tourism and could bring awareness amongst the people about the endangered wildlife species and also the forest. This led to emergence of several habitable spaces in the buffer zone, amongst which the Kanha Earth Lodge stands as one. Here, the temperature, this area as lies in the tropical dry region with moderate climate, the humidity can be seen high in August, followed by more precipitation, which is observed in July. Next.
So talking about the topography, the site is located on an undulated land with minimal but a gradual slope in the buffer zone of the Kanha National Park. Before the construction, the land was barren and was used by the cattle for the grazing. But today, the site bears over 1,000 different kind of tree species. If we move on to the immediate context, we can see the Dhanwar village and we can see the adjoining Dhanwar village and the Narna village where the Kanha Earth Lodge itself is located, still have the traces of Gond culture. The people here practice the vernacular style of architecture. We can see the illustrations that depict the circulation. The primary circulation talks about the site approach from the nearby villages. The secondary circulation talks about the internal pathways, which they term as pagdandis, that connect the built-up that connects the built-up, and the entrance and exit ports can be seen in the third illustration. As we could see the traces of the vernacular architecture, Gond architecture in the Kanha Earth Lodge, so we decided to look around a typology of a house found in the Narna village. So we came to the conclusions of their use of locally available materials in terms of wood used as a structural member, mud for walls, and mangrove tiles for roofing. Their concept of shared kitchen garden was a prominent feature of those houses with no boundary walls and shared courtyards. The handicrafts made of locally available wood and bamboo and paintings were seen in their houses as they possess ritualistic purpose and promote harmony and peace. Next. So the Gond community believes that the nature has it all. Therefore, the Kana Earth Lodge stands as a landmark that embraces their own culture and continues to promote their values.
Site justification. The site has been designed carefully without being destructive intervention and blending up nicely with the context, knowing the grassroots and innovating them for the betterment. The lodge is also dedicated to preserve the vernacular architecture of Nana. In the recent times, many of the traditional houses at Nana were getting replaced by modern construction, and the tribes are getting lured by modernity. The construction of lodge in Nana has had a fruitful impact amongst the local to preserve the essence of their tribe. These skills have helped in shaping the lodge gains its identity. Moving towards introducing the spaces of the lodge, starting off with the main entrance, which is a double shutter gate, is provided at the entrance. It serves as a preview of the form of the space being entered. The patio, an implied plane established by two pillars, creates a threshold. These pillars has been carved according to the Goan culture. It encourages greater visual and spatial continuity between two spaces where people can sit and relax under the silhouettes of the trees and chirping sounds of birds. The main building, which extends up to 185.86 square meter, the Pagdandi or the pathway ushers to the main building that comprises of all the administrative activities of the lodge, along with the souvenir shop where the locals come to sell their paintings and handicrafts. The cottages, whose built-up area is 83.613 square meter, the lodge comprises of 12 cottages. Each cottage is a harmonious blend with the flora. Each cottage consists of an entrance foyer, a bedroom deck, changing room, and toilets. The pool, who extends up to 464.515 square meter, the dip pool is placed within a cluster of trees, a space for leisure and relaxation in the lap of nature. Coming up to the main building, who is being inspired by the topography of the site and followed by the principles of minimum cut and fill. The physical form of this building is not dominant but blends well with the surrounding. Here, the spatial organization shows a relationship between biological and inorganic spaces. Space, which is within a space, or spaces linked with a common space or adjacent spaces, shows this type of relation. Here, there are horizontal, vertical, and sloping planes, which include walls, floor, and roof. Starting with the horizontal plane, which is the floor where it is being covered with stone. Specifically, yellow sandstone is the material used for the final flooring. These roughly cut stones arranged randomly gives a better look. Rather, being uniform, the floor is being terraced or spaced to create a differentiation between the spaces. The vertical plane, that is the wall, is of three layers: the brick, plaster, and the oil paint layer. The sloping planes of the roof also got a series of layers constructed in a manner to protect the interior from exterior intruders. Next.
Coming to the cottages that are 12 in number have a prominent feature of sloping roof that welcomes the users, and also a feature that can be seen in the houses of the Goan tribes. The material palette is same as the above, with the strategic use of strategies starting from orientation. 6 of the cottages face the north side and 6 towards the west. So this was strategically planned so as each cottage gets the view of the lake. And the harsh sunlight coming from the south and the southwest is cut off by strategic plantations of bushy trees. So the abundant vegetation on the site itself take care of most of the challenges related to the climate itself.
You still have 2 minutes to finish it up.
So the cottage consists of a living area, deck with a bedroom and toilets. So as we move on to the details of the cottage, we can see the trapezoidal foundation with a raised plinth as a base, so as to increase the strength and avoid the insects and creatures to move into the space. We can see the subtraction of mass to create an entrance into the cottage. The use of recycled materials and materials borrowed from the villages nearby symbolize the vernacular traces in the modern building. Next.
Similar to the manner in which a shade tree offers a sense of enclosed beneath its umbrella structure, an overhead plane defines a field of space between itself and the ground plane. The structure includes two types of garden, the butterfly garden and the kitchen garden, where it is used for the organic farming and providing fresh veggies to the guest and the locality.
Here are some of the construction details. And moving on to the rustic richness of the materials and the blending form with its context serve its purpose of luxury as well as solace, and also it stands as a landmark. We can actually see the RCC construction overpowering the actual essence of village, but following the grassroots with new innovations could give a sense of novelty and familiarity. We always talk of including nature into the building, but nature as a context, it is already there. It is the reality that the building has to face. So the Kana Earth Lodge not only respects the context, but also serves and aims to preserve the natural context and the vegetation, the wildlife, and the community that it represents. So we sum up our idea of infill and conclude our presentation. Thank you.
So we'll start with Brinda ji.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure. All right, thank you. Thank you guys. Nicely represented project. What I really liked about the way you presented it was also acknowledging certain factors, like for example, you said how the RCC overpowers, but yet there are all of these balancing elements that are very contextual and are responsive to the local culture as well as the forest and the area where it is located. So recognizing that was really significant. Other than that, again, I've been fairly consistent about asking this question, which is that when you talk about the local culture, are there any other references besides like small things that are represented through the decorative features or some other things? Are there any other spaces which are from a typology perspective representative of the local? That was the only question I had. Thank you.
So now Parul ji.
Yes. From the construction technologies, if you could just elaborate a little bit on the walls. You said something about it, but walls and windows, I think they have used all local wood. It looks like it, and roof ceilings, because this is really a very good project selection, as I would go and say that. And it's very well represented by you. Congrats for that. Doing a good job. I'm done.
Okay. First, I definitely appreciate the kind of project selection. It's very good, but again, I would really like to know who implemented this project and what is the process of implementation. Because it seems the process here itself, the way it is being implemented is something to really look at for future directions. That is number one. Second is I take on what Parul has commented on. What are the other local elements? Because there are some windows that it seems that either it is being recycled or it is who are really constructing this. Is it the Gond tribe itself is involved in the implementation or something? So what is the dialogue between the designers and this local community and their involvement into this project? That is the second one. And rest of the things, probably the kind of motives, because all these tribal cultures, they have a belief system, and that is normally being executed in various kind of doors, windows, motifs, the way they use their utensils, the furnitures, the way they actually serve your food and all that. So everything is been purpose. There are some indications that you have already thought about it, and also the name of the local species that they have used. I mean, then would have been much more kind of a repository of a interesting tribal cultural knowledge. I think this is a good job. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. I'll start by answering your question, sir. Uh, the basic idea of the architect Padmaja Srivastava and architect Deepak Srivastava was like to incorporate the Gond, like not to, they majorly had to save the Gond community from being overpowered. So they had this thinking process that the lodge should have certain character to it, which will represent the Gond community itself. And also in the construction process, the locals were involved.
Mm-hmm.
And
Also, sir, as far as you talked about the elements that have been used locally. So, if you saw if you see the roof thing, so there are all the layers of the roof is being used from the resources which is locally available there. Though it be wooden rafters, the Burmese slates, the sal wood, tin, wooden rafters, or the Mangalore tiles. So yeah, so also the locals have contributed much for the construction as well as the present working of the resort.
Okay. I have just one extra question, because if I look at your roof profile, so above the bamboo slates, the solid purlins that I can understand, then there is a tin roof. After the tin roof, another wooden rafters, and then Mangalore tile. I mean, what is this? Is not really a tribal way of looking at it. Is it a kind of a improvisation, or it is what? And
yes,
why
it is a
they have
kind.
given it here?
Yeah, it is just because of the rainfall in that area. So to cater the precipitation and to avoid the leakage into the interiors, so they have provided the tin, and it is a kind of an innovation done for that purpose only.
Because here Mangalore tile is only decorative, because the kind of slope that it requires for a kind of a watertight roof is shallower. Probably that is why they are using tin, or tin they are using it normally in the other cases. I mean, this is something of an intrigue, that because you have to put these rafters, so again the tin will be perforated. So I really don't understand that bit of a detail.
See, it will help in insulation. It will really help in insulation with the air gaps that will be there in between.
Okay, but that is also, if you really put the rafters there, probably a detailed section would have actually helped to understand the detail. Is why there are two layers of thing. The tile itself is a thermally suitable things, because in Bengal we have used tiles extensively, and we don't really put in anything below. So why there is a tin? Because tile is being replaced with tin, not tin being replaced with the tiles or added on the tiles.
Sir, the answer to your question is such that as this entire structure is being constructed in the forest vicinity, so it is expected the jungle intruders to come inside, like it may invade inside. So for that purpose, they may it's easy for them to remove the mangrove tiles. But if we give a thin layer, so it gives a proper shading to that and make the structure invade proof for that matter.
Yeah, I agree with that. we've dealt with things like that, and you need something solid in between.
Now, if there is a shal rafters there, because Bangalore tile, I have seen, if there are monkeys in the forest, Bangalore tile is something they keep on ripping off. Even in Deoghar, in other places, because that's not really a very conventional detail. Even, I mean, if you go to the similar kind of gold culture, what they have is a khapra tiles, and there are multiple layers to it. So this particular combination of the tin and tiles is somewhat, I find it, this is something of a kind of a exploration. Why? So that is my only kind of take.
I had just one more question regarding the tribe. Did you get a chance to look at any of their settlements?
Yes, ma'am. We did went to the locals' house, so we got to study, physically document the traditional bone house. So we also provided it in our slide. The house we documented in Narna. This one is like this is the actual house there.
And so you see here, the
the
slope
roof.
of the roof is much more pronounced, and it is tiles.
Yeah.
So this is exactly what my point is, because the profile somehow doesn't look very kind of more authentic or towards the natural profile. I mean, that is the only observation that I have, nothing else.
Yeah, but I think when you are dealing with hotels, they do want a lot more safety than just that. And when you're in a national park, I think this would also be client's requirement, I guess. I mean, and one more thing that I want to say is that whenever you do something like this in rural areas, it really boosts the economy of that place. Not only that these people get employed while making the building, and there will be more of such buildings coming up, but also many a times they are employed by the hotels and resorts themselves. That has been our experience, that the 5 to 6 villages around that place really start prospering.
That is.
And the best part is, which I think you people should know as students, that you don't need to migrate. These people, don't have to think of migration. When we visited our place after 10 years, they said all 6 villages around this, you have to now come and see all our 6 villages, the way we have prospered. And when they were building that building, that resort, like they would have been doing in Kannada, they were attending to their farming in the morning, coming to the site and working, going back home for lunch and resting, coming back to the site, and evening again they're back home. Look at the kind of mental status that they have when you're working like this. You have that security, and you're living in the comfort of your house, and you're earning 2 ways. You're also earning on your farm and whatever other things that you're doing, your traditional earning, whatever you have. At the same time, you are able to interact and contribute in the local construction systems. And that knowledge and skill, their children also adopt. And they see that, yes, if we go this way, we don't have to run to the cities.
Yeah, this is fine. Actually.
There's all social implications and socio-economic implications as well.
Yeah.
Very good discussion. Thank you all.
Sure. Next.
Yeah, that's it. Anybody else? Any other? Okay, over to the next, if that's the case.
Next entry, you can present. Hello, sir. Are we audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Good afternoon. First of all, we'd like to thank you. Hello, are we audible?
Yes. Yes.
Of course, we are accepting. We can hear you. Come on, go ahead.
Sorry for the interruption, sir. Good afternoon. First of all, we'd like to thank you for giving us this opportunity and for having us here. Our quest for infill architecture within 30 years led us to the Brunton Boatyard Heritage Hotel in the age-old colonial streets of Fort Kochi. It was built in the year 1998 and designed by the Swiss architect Karl Damschen. The hotel was built on the site of a historically important shipyard whose name has been adopted in the present hotel as an homage to the old building. The Brunton displays the history of Fort Cochin through its architecture, essentially acting as a tangible museum for the visitors. The hand-rendered cover sheet shows the main view of the Brunton Boatyard as seen from the Vembanad Lake. This particular view was chosen because we wanted to show the hotel the way the architect had envisioned it during the first stages of design. Moving on to the history sheet, which shows the history of the site and the town. Fort Kochi was transformed into a navigable estuary in 1341 during the Great Flood of Periyar, which attracted many foreign visitors. Excuse me, can you see the history sheet right now?
No.
Please excuse us. We're trying to. So we're trying to rectify the issue. Please wait for a moment.
While you are rectifying whatever, what's the name of the architect you said? Swiss architect?
So the name is Karl Damschen.
Karl Damschen. Okay, thank you. Let me check. This guy. 1942. 8-year-old.
Hello?
Yes.
Should we start from the beginning or should we just continue where we left off?
You just
Just
continue.
continue. Yeah.
Okay, sir. This is the history sheet that depicts the history of the site and how the Brunton Boatyard came into being. Fort Kochi was transformed into a navigable estuary in 1341 during the Great Flood of Periyar, which attracted many foreign visitors. In 1500, the first visitors from Portugal arrived, eventually making Fort Kochi the first European colony in India. The Portuguese developed the town economically and culturally, bringing their architecture tailored to Kochi's climate. In 1663, the Dutch overthrew the Portuguese and burnt down their buildings, thus erasing most of the influence of the Portuguese. The Dutch then introduced a more matured style of architecture in the town. In 1814, the British drew out the Dutch, making Fort Kochi a part of the British Raj. This is when George Brunton established his highly successful shipbuilding company, the Brunton Boatyard. They were successful owing to the prominence of water transportation during its time. As rail and road transportation developed, the boatyard slowly declined into ruin. Then the CGH group of hotels acquired the site in 1993 and hired architect Carl Damschen to build a heritage hotel in 1998.
Fort Kochi is essentially a living museum of colonial powers that once ruled the area. The buildings present there are an amalgamation of the colonial styles along with Kerala architecture. So the architect deemed it necessary to reflect this unique style into Brunton. This sheet shows all the historical buildings that have influenced the design of Brunton. The buildings have been classified into broad and immediate context based on their proximity to the site. Brunton Boatyard Hotel stands on a worn-out British boatyard, retaining the same name. Some of the features that were included are wide verandas, just as in Bolgati Palace, arcades as in Aspen Wall, sloping roofs like in Matancheri Palace, and so on. The architect embraced the grassroots of Fort Kochi architecture, forging a visual balance to the existing landscape. While the previous sheet showed the colonial influences in the design, this sheet presents what the building adapted from the pre-existing typology of Fort Kochi. Brunton was mainly influenced by two typologies, which are open court type and bungalow type. Open court buildings would be close to a water body, from which goods would be carried to a godown, which are segregated at an open courtyard and then moved to a room closer to the street. This is clearly seen in the Pepper House. Brunton also has an open courtyard type plan. Open court type plans or buildings also show goods on a ground floor, while upper floors are residential in purpose. Brunton also has its residences on the upper floor. The next typology that influenced was the bungalow type, which brought the open veranda and well-landscaped exteriors, which are clearly reflected in Brunton. And now speaking of the skyline, this site primarily has a horizontal landscape, and Brunton adheres to the site's visual balance by blending along with all the buildings close to it, such as the Pepper House, Aspen Wall, and so on. And speaking about the form evolution, from a conventional cuboidal plan, it incorporated a courtyard into its design. And then they raised a two-story to get a better view of the vast Pemberand Lake in front of it.
On the next sheet, we move on to our site. The site is highly accessible from all the transport hubs, and the building has been designed according to the climate of Kochi, which is a warm and humid climate. The vegetation present in the site influences the microclimate by channeling the northwestern breeze. The site also maintains the monkey pod trees, which were planted by the British and is also home to various animals like peacocks, cranes, seagulls, and squirrels.
Now, this sheet shows the styles which are reflected within the building. And so first we see about the seating. Speaking about the seating, this was a Dutch style. And this was mainly put there to view the outside regions and what all activities take place there. And then next is showing a three-story building appearing to be two-story. And this is also a Dutch feature. The large sloping roof conceals the top floor. And this helps to reduce the load on the structure by using timber. This similar style is also seen in Bastion Bungalow. And the next feature is the 4-slash window. And this feature was mainly used to maximize lighting and ventilation. And then there's a rooftop garden, which is a European style. And this is put on the western side of the building. And speaking about layouts, the building follows a Dutch Baroque style. And this can be said because of the use of symmetrical wings on each side and similar to the general structural arrangements, like having a basement, main floor, and upper level for building. And then they have also adapted the Kerala style courtyard into the building. So similar in function to the courtyards in Kerala, these are used for gathering and venue for functions. And then there's a lowered window, which is a Portuguese style feature, and this is used for privacy of the guests. Then there's a buttress wall, which is a Portuguese feature, and these were highly ornamental, and they were used in Brunton and Fort Kochi. And speaking of the climatic responses of the site, there's the veranda, which acts as a buffer space for the radiation and the rain. And then there's a kilivadil, which acts as a cross ventilation. And then the splayed window, which shape is used for wind entering through the narrow outside and broader to the interior. Then the central courtyard also has a climatic responsive purpose. And the rooms are positioned on the northern side of the site because the heat gain is maximum at the southern and western sides. And speaking about sustainability, the water used in Brunton is RO treated water, which is sources rainwater.
Next is a basement floor plan. The basement contains the services. This ensures that the main floors do not have to use space for the services. Our ground floor plan consists of two sections, which is the H wing and the U wing. The H wing contains all the residential rooms, while the U wing contains the reception lounge, tea lounge, and kitchen. On the first floor, you can see that the residential rooms are placed on the north, while the history restaurant and roof garden are placed on the west. On a second floor, it is purely residential, and you can find the residential rooms exactly above the first floor on the northern side. And it has a mezzanine floor, which is used for storage. This is the roof plan, and then the detailed rafter plan.
Next, we see the southeast side elevation showing the entrance of the building with a section adjacent to it. The next is the northwestern elevation, which faces the Vembanad Lake and a section.
Sorry,
And the next, yes, sir.
then you have very less time left, please.
Oh, okay, so speaking about the construction details, the building has a 60 centimeter thick wall on the exterior and a 25 centimeter thick wall on the interior. The large thickness is provided to give a thermal lag to the high temperature outside. And they have used a slab and drop column for the foundation, which increases the punching shear stress and prevents the failure of the floor. And then for the flooring, they have used terracotta tiles, and for flooring, they have used terracotta tiles and red oxide skirting. And these tiles can withstand a lot of stress by resisting breaking and chipping. And they have used arches as well. And they have used Dutch style arches and mainly segmental arches and round shaped arches. And they have used semicircular arches in the fan lights of doors and windows. Segmental arches are used in the facades and the entrance portico. And then they have used lowered windows, which is also Dutch style, and we have mentioned about that earlier. Then there's a roof structure. Roof uses mainly two kinds of trusses, king truss and queen truss. The king truss is used on the lower floors, while the queen truss is used above because it has a wider span. And then you have used cast iron expansion strips to compensate for the expansion the building can happen to the building due to moisture to prevent crack from coming to the building. They have also used soundproofing to shield it from the unnecessary noise as it's near a jungle.
Next sheet shows the detailed isometric view of the rafters. It also gives the joinery details and the post and the trusses details. The king and queen post truss present is a significant European influence seen in the hotel. Next, we show the detailed isometric view of the entire hotel. To conclude, I should begin by stating that the selection of a building according to the brief was really not easy, but the journey led us to the Brunton Boatyard Heritage Hotel. The documentation of the hotel was an enriching experience. The moment we stepped into the lobby, we were transported back into the colonial past. It felt as if we were not in a bustling town of the 21st century. We could learn about the importance of infill architecture and how a building does not have to be completely unique to be remarkable. When we look at a grassroots level, the Brunton Boatyard Heritage Hotel undoubtedly helped in the development of an area, helping the local communities. These are the various photographs we took when we went for the documentation. These show the various spaces and elements that make the hotel a truly heritage, a hotel with a heritage experience. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So we'll start with Parul Javeri ji.
Just a second. I would say that it's a very good selection of the project. I have stayed there and enjoyed every bit of it. And we had air conditioners in the room, but there was no need to start them, neither during day nor at night. And the way it has responded to the climate as well as the local traditions, etc., it's really wonderful. And you have done a good job of recording it. What do you think would be the case if it was different? How would you design it is the first thing. If you get a site like this, do you think if you had not seen Brunton Boatyard, you would still take this route of design? A question that I'd like you and all the students to ask. This has been, there's been rainwater collection system that's also there. If I don't know whether you mentioned it or not.
Yes, they mentioned.
Yeah, okay. And the way the local IKS flooring has also been used in many places, besides the red terracotta flooring, is good. And what is your learning from this is more important for me than anything else, because there isn't much to comment about this. Because it is really responding very well to the entire context.
Yeah.
Should we answer it right now, or should we wait for everyone to ask their questions?
No, let everyone continue. Anjan, your turn, and then Brinda, please.
Okay. It's a wonderful site selection, to start with. So, I mean, actually accepting, and you have documented it well, highlighted each of the design issues very correctly. So, my question is exactly, what have you really learned in this kind of context? And second is, what about the maintenance and operational usage which they have incorporated in their long history of existence? What are the changes that they have incorporated? How they try to cope up with the new trends like the AC or other services, that intrusion that has actually gone in a heritage fabric. So these are, even the lighting, electrical systems, these things were not there. So how they have incorporated that within this very strongly defined heritage fabric. Because this is something one need to know, because they will be the yardsticks for the future of architecture. So I just stop at that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, nice building, and I think good representation. Most of what I wanted to say has been said. I have just one more thing, which is, did you manage to see this? I'm sure you would have, but when you were documenting this, see this building from the water side, like from the lake side, and understand how it contextually fits within the skyline. And I'm sure you've seen it many times, but I didn't see it represented in your drawings. So I was just thinking that that might be another way of looking at contextual representation of this, or rather contextual kind of fitting in the insert within the skyline of the place. And it might give you a slightly different way to strengthen what you're saying about the building. It's definitely fitting in very well, and we all know it, like we've seen it. So I guess that part I felt could have helped you stepping away and looking at it from the water.
Okay.
That's it.
Does anyone have any more questions?
No.
That's it. Go ahead.
Okay, ma'am, actually answering your question first about the water, the lakeside view. we've actually represented it in our in one of our sheets. 1 second, we're finding it difficult to switch sheets again.
I think I remember seeing it, but you didn't
Yes, ma'am.
interpret it. That was what I meant.
Yes, ma'am. Speaking on the skyline, mainly if you see from the Vemarad Lake side, all you can see is a horizontal aspect of it. There are no like vertical huge skyscrapers or anything. So mainly what the architect also focused on was bringing these aspects. So if you compare it with the buildings just close to it, for example, Aspen Road, the buildings are like really majorly horizontal in structure, and you can see that. And they have even incorporated that large sloping roof, a Dutch feature, to conceal the top floor. So it just looks like a straight horizontal line.
Okay, thanks.
Hope I answered your question, ma'am.
Yes, thanks.
Next, about the changes that occurred in the hotel according to the times. Actually, when the hotel was designed, it did not have soundproof rooms because beside this hotel there was a ferry. It was a Jangar ferry before, but later they transformed the Jangar into a Roro, which could move both sides, forward and backward. And the Roro was actually really loud, and that was a sort of disturbance to the residents of the hotel. Sorry, sir.
No, carry on.
Okay. So, in order to cope up with the sound level of that time, they introduced soundproofing to the walls so that the residents could completely enjoy their stay without any disturbance. And then about the modern features in this hotel, the AC vents are actually hidden. You can't actually see the vents because the walls are really thick. So that is also a very interesting way in which the architect has incorporated modern features into this colonial building.
May I say this? I mean, this is totally newly built building. There was
Yes,
nothing
ma'am.
on the site. Yeah.
Yes, it is completely newly built in a
Yeah.
colonial style building.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Then about what we've learned during our documentation, we've learned that in order to build a building, you don't really have to show off your design knowledge or completely show off everything you've known. You have to incorporate the situation, the surroundings, and the local building style too. We've understood how different it would be if this were a completely modern 5-star building. This is a 5-star hotel, but it does not seem like a very showy building. It seems as if it is an old house or or an old ancestral home. It gives you a very warm feeling.
Yeah, that's true. And the ego of the architect is not established here. The style is not established here, which is part of our Bauhaus traditions and modern architecture traditions and postmodern architecture tradition.
Yes, ma'am.
We don't want to. We just want to show that it's me here.
Yes, ma'am.
And look at the harmony that it has maintained. Isn't it nice and pleasing to be around this place and walk down the streets or even go on to the boat ride? What does it feel like going in other cities where you just have one skyscraper competing with the other, and you have a nice low traditional building, and then you have a glass box that heats up like a cold tea, where you first heat it up and then you cool it.
Yeah,
this is
so true.
Yeah, and even the verandas, and they're so nice. Actually, when we were there were no soundproofing and I did not mind. We stayed there for 2-3 days. But I know, but especially when people come from abroad, they have issues with sounds.
Actually, in our first cover sheet, we've taken the view from the lakeside. When we met the architect, he had mentioned that while designing, or during the initial stage of designing, he had viewed the site from the lake side so that he could get an idea of how the building would fit into the site and how it would fit into the context. So this is why we thought of including this view in our cover sheet, because it's a really important view for the building.
Right, right. You started with this, I clearly remember, but when you were explaining the building, you didn't go back and look at the details of the building again. That would have completed the thing.
No,
But that's fine. You explained it. That's fine.
Even the furniture and every detail in this building goes back to colonial times.
Yes, ma'am. There's actually old fans called pankhas in the lobby, which are reminiscent of a British colonial times. There's a picture.
I can see Parul is so nostalgic.
Yes. And especially to find something like that, we did not expect it to be. We had not seen any previous views.
Yes. Incidentally, while some of you are discussing, I was quickly checking out this architect. And I've heard of so many of his projects. I've been to two of them, the Kashi Cafe and the other one there, but I never knew it was this guy. The one more project of his, I was just checking. I knew it was done by a foreign architect, but I never bothered to find out who. Same CGH group. Amazing work. Amazing work. I mean, generally, I'm not referring to your entry, student. I'm referring to his works in Kerala. The sensitivity has brought, sitting, being born in Switzerland, Germany, and finally, what he brings to Kerala, that's really surprising.
Which is rare.
Yeah.
I guess, Satya, it has to do with cultural sensitivity, because he came from Switzerland and this is almost like a Dutch building. Even the imagery of this thing, if you really see their first shot, which is almost like a ferry, you see in our float and all other things, it reminds you of that, the length and the spread of the thing. It's almost like your
but there are other project of his. Of course, there were some colonial hangovers, but there are other project of his, which have a kind of a character, which is equally rooted in the local ethos.
No, that is it.
The Kashi Cafe.
Blended it well.
Yeah, he's blended well. And he's done a lot of restoration projects also. The synagogue, I've been to the Vernacular, the Cochin synagogue, the Kashi Cafe, and all. I have been there. So it's now really I'm connecting in a different way, if not like the way Parul did. Anything more on this?
No,
I just want to add that even the cuisine, which is very Kerala-based cuisine, it adds to the whole thing. Even your water that you get is from that herb. It's that pink color water that you're served in your rooms.
Yeah.
So all that builds up.
I know your nostalgia is getting exotic. Okay, thank you. Thank you for all the comments.
So NASA should promote us and take us there for a stay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You plan a trip.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So over to next group. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Stop presenting. Yeah, the next group can present.
If you started talking, you guys are on mute because we can't hear you.
Excuse me, sir. Good afternoon, all. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, you are audible.
questions. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sriniti A.
I'm Jayashree G.
We are here to present L.I.K trophy sheets on behalf of 64 L.I.K 36. We would like to start with our intro sheet containing a poem that gives a brief about Madurai rich context, which with a front elevation of the chosen building, AVN Ayurvedic Hospital, Pasumalai, Madurai, built in the year 2010 by the architect Shrujan.
Madurai has undergone through very interesting past, and it is believed that the version of Madurai was adapted by the various architecture during each period of time. Next.
Next, the brief interpretation. After the globalization, industrial construction industry has developed in an incredible way, which gives us a spectacular heritage buildings that must be conserved now. Most of the buildings in the conservation area are facing a dramatic situation. One side of the heritage buildings should keep the architectural, historical, aesthetic, as well as the social values. But on the other side, they must be developed based on the real market demand. Infill building should be the solution in making respectful contemporary contribution to the conservation area. Infill building is based on the sustainable conservation approach. So the development is not only solving the physical problems, but also non-physical. And we here have represented the context of the building in a diagrammatic way. In the lower portion of the circle, we have 4 images which indicates the roots of the building, which is the context also. The first one indicates the existing building, which is a farmhouse on the site, which was left undisturbed. And the coconut trees, hill views, rural style, which has a calm feeling. Third image represents the main function of the building, which is occupation, Ayurvedic treatment, which happens inside the building. It influences the zoning and the aesthetic parts of the building. And the fourth image shows the arrangement of the building on the site, which is responsive to the hot, humid climate of Madurai. The upper portion of the circle tells about the way it is responded to the site.
Site justification. The site gets situated in a specific discriminable context where the blend of architecture, Kerala architecture in the Madurai context without affecting the rich architecture of Madurai. It becomes a matter of concern, may look it as an infill. This building attempts to represent Ayurveda as contemporary science rooted in the Indian tradition. Next. We have analyzed the site by social, historical, climate, geographical, and infrastructural characteristics, and synthesizing these analyses into visual information in the form of site analysis diagram. Next.
Here, we have shown the SWOT analysis of the site. When we speak about the context of the building, it involves climate, cultural, local, and architectural style involving lifestyle of people. They have blended the vernacular and contemporary architecture as it improves the building adaptation to a particular climate with the use of locally available materials. In the weakness we see as loosened soil because of the high water table level. The strength of the site may seem as dense population because the neighboring people has worked under the construction. And the threat of the site may be as traffic in the main road, which will affect the peoples coming inside the clients. And the opportunity, microclimatic pond on the southwest side.
Site introduction. The AVN Ayurvedic Hospital is situated in Madagulam village of Madurai South Taluk. It is an Ayurvedic hospital and science medical center of this locality, a complex that comprises of various buildings with varied characters, and these buildings may have their unique essence and serve for their different purposes. They have been developed this site by the lush vegetation and the sustainable techniques of approach to the site-rich context. Next. AVN is the evolution from phase 1, 1920 to 1970.
It is started from this warrior community. People from this community were involved in Ayurvedic medicines. In Kerala, there was a college named Ayurveda Padasale, where Rama Warrior did his college studies in the period of 1920s. After he came to Madurai, he rented a house on a town hall road, and the house was designed in such a way that the ground floor was his hospital and the first floor was his house. And his wife used to prepare medicines with Rama Warrior's guidance. With those medicines, the couple started the clinic and the pharmacy. Phase 2, from 1970s to 2010. It was at that time he came to know there was a 15-acre site in Tenkarai. He decided to shift to Tenkarai rural place with nature, connectivity, and peacefulness. Being a drama warrior, they were not satisfied having their clinic in the heart of the city, where the site well connected with nature and justice to their profession. Earlier, the site was a linear corridor farmhouse surrounded by a holy basil garden with scattered jackfruit trees. In 1970, they built four rooms around the corridor farmhouse surrounded by many medical trees.
Phase 3, 2010 to present. During their golden jubilee in 2010, they decided to improve their organization. So that even from the abroad, people may come and visit and get treatment. In order to accommodate many people, they needed to establish a hospital of 100 beds and luxury nursing villas. The main motto of Ramesh Warrior was to indicate the old Ayurvedic treatment with a new technology he wanted to do with a modern touch. Likewise, he designed the building in such a way that it was a contemporary architecture and had a lot of modern architectural styles, blend with the greenery spaces outside. The building is said to have a lot of open spaces connecting nature. So this was how the Avian Ayurvedic Hospital was developed.
Admin block. The total structure comprises the specialized doctor's cabin and combined consultation rooms. They have been segregated the semi-public and the public zones by the method of open courtyard, where the climatic impact results in the building functionality. And it acts as a node of interaction as open-air theatre to hold some functions and to fill the gap of mental health. Next. This sheet showing back elevation and the side elevations. Like they have gone for passive cooling techniques. The positioning of the windows where that facilitates cross ventilation and permits the daylighting into the interiors. As the building influenced by the Kerala architecture, slope roofs are used in each typology of the building. Next.
Cottage 1. This cottage is an influence of both vernacular and contemporary architecture. The spaces flow from the public space to private spaces, while the outside space in the entrance surrounded by the landscape is inspired from the vernacular architecture. Seated space is provided as a cross-reference to the Tinai in vernacular architecture.
You still have 2 minutes to finish your presentation.
Excuse me, sir?
Sir?
Saying you still have 2 minutes to wrap the presentation. Sir.
Okay.
Okay.
As I said, the vernacular architecture. As I said, the vernacular architecture was used if materials were replaced in the form of modern construction techniques to the site. Sit-out spaces are given in reference to thin area at the entrance of the house. It acts as an entry, the place where they can sit and relax after the treatment section. By providing windows on the opposite side of walls, they have achieved cross ventilation, and this helps to reduce or eliminate air conditioning. This is cottage type 2. By interpretation of the theme infill, the methodology of construction of the site, where the climatic response and the spatial organization of the cottage from public zone to private zone as an hierarchy for the user's psychological comfort. In total, we have single room villas in which every 2 villas have a common therapy room, which is connected by the corridor space. They have constructed using vernacular type of materials with replacement of modern construction techniques. Next. Sustainable techniques, materials used were locally sourced and made use of skilled local labor. In site level, they have gone for solar panels and rainwater harvesting methods. And in building level, they have gone for Bangalore tiles and bricks. Bricks they are made from the site and naturally brought from the nearby village. And the roof tiles were taken from the already existing farmers in the site. Next.
Cottage type 3. They have a royal suite villa in which customers who need privacy and their individual spaces can stay here. The touch of modern architecture as seen as thatched roof is replaced with the sloped roof with mangrove tiles, the false ceiling RCC slab. Mud walls replaced with bricks and so on.
In on-site, they have constructed using a traditional method. Like mortar was produced with the traditional chana with the stone wall rotated by bullocks and the line pasted walls, and walls with a thermal insulation provide soundproof materials like a sense of solidity and a permanence to the structure. Next.
Time's up. You can just show the rest of your sheets and then we can go to the jury comments.
This is the cottage type 3 front elevation, the back elevation. Next. This is the conclusion part. Next. And this is the construction details of the slab, roof, and the foundation details. Next. And this is the construction details too, showing flooring, railing details, plus interior plus wall. Next. Next. Photo mounted sheet 1, showing architectural elements of the on-site photographs. Next. Next. And these are the documentation where you have sketched on site. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We'll start with Brinda.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for the presentation. It was good to see how the local material was being used to construct the place. And also everything was happening on site, right? Like the production of all of those. So I'm glad that you were able to document that aspect and highlight it. My other question was that you spoke in the beginning about different phases, right? Like, and I'm assuming that I couldn't get it very clearly, but I'm assuming that the building was constructed in phases.
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
So would you be able to explain, is there anything that had what elements had continuity between those phases, and, how did it, bring it together as far as the building itself is concerned? That's it.
Parul. Yeah, we'll go with Parul Zaveri.
I think we need from you more about the materials, the way they are used. Cross ventilation you saw in some buildings, but in the luxury villa, you don't see that happening. So walls, etc. One needs little more understanding from you to comment on. And how do you think the whole complex worked, the way the linkages were? Did they work? And you saw a few tall buildings next to it, I think 2 number, right? The blocks number 2. What are they? And why are they multi-storied when you already have so much land? What was the reason behind it? Little more information required on that before going further for me. Also on the flooring, colors, textures, the treatment rooms, etc. How they are treated, how are they ventilated, what is the passive cooling technique that you're talking about, how is the sun tackled, or are they also using solar energy? Are they, since they are into Ayurveda and all, are they growing their own vegetables? Are they, about lights, fans, air conditioning? Because generally they don't allow air conditioning. So how are they tackling that part? So all these aspects one would like to know more about.
Anjanji next.
Okay. It's not a good selection to start with.
Anjan,
Yeah.
go ahead, go ahead. Now you have to justify why you are saying it.
No, that is exactly. Because normally in particularly L.I.K trophy is...
One sec, sorry. I was keen to know who is the architect for this.
So he's Sanjay from our college. Like he's an alumni.
Sanjay what? Only Sanjay.
His name is Sanjay.
Sanjay, okay. In which city does he practice? His office is in?
So in Madurai.
Madurai, okay, all right.
Now, what I'm saying is primarily, if you select a site or a project, it is for something. What actually inspired you to take a project like this? What you would, so it has to be of some element to provoke your mindset. Why you will be doing it? Because you have read the brief. So it should be something which will have a narration of it. The title, the moment I saw it's a Ayurveda hospital, I thought at least there will be some connect of the, so it is like any other hospital. So what, so is so special about this project? So it is not really a technology or your contextual to start with. Then it doesn't really have anything to which is inspired by its local context, local tradition, local culture. Because when you're talking about Ayurveda school, so I thought the Ayurveda has a very strong discipline and it has a major orientation. This is the science of life. That is what is Ayurveda. So their take on their building should be very different than a very conventional way of looking at it. All we got is something very conventional kind of a practice, and there is hardly any kind of traditional wisdom which is brought in. So I don't think that is a very appropriate kind of case to look at it. Thank you.
So the students, do you want to respond to the earlier questions?
Now asked about the continuity of these spaces. Can we show that?
You can just speak about it. That's fine.
Okay. For in our site, they have they have been on-site farmers. They have renovated as an outpatients block, and in 1920s they have constructed the admin block, and they have developed the site by producing the user. The context of the users, they have developed the site by producing the individual villa blocks and the royal suites for the user's perspective. So this was the continuity of the site from the farmers to the building.
Okay, no, that's not what really I was asking. I was trying to understand when you said they were built in phases from a design perspective, was there any continuity between the phases as well as between the building and the surrounding areas?
The continuity was they did not disturb the farmhouse. They maintained the same architectural style. So the building looks like it is a farmhouse, like more same roof styles and same things was being the elements was being repeated. So the architecture is something that continues throughout the every phase.
All right, thank you.
All right, so we'll move to the next group then.
Yeah, I'm just presenting. Is the screen visible?
Yes, it is.
A very good afternoon to everyone present here. Cultural continuity has been a major force in the shaping of societies, and architecture has always been among the forefronts to connect us to the past. With this ideology, for the 64th L.I.K Trophy, we have selected and documented Indian Institute of Health Management Research, IIHMR, which is situated in the city of Jaipur, Rajasthan.
The 14.37 acres campus was designed by architect Ashok B. Lal and Associates in year 1988. It is located near the airport at Sangane on the outreaches of Jaipur. IIHMR was established and registered as a non-profit work society in 1984. The project was the winning entry of the closed competition of design of IIHMR, which was further nominated for Aga Khan Award in 1988. It was completed in 1991. Later, in 2020, the institute submitted a proposal to the state government for establishment of private university. Ashok B. Lal united all the stonemasons of Rajasthan to work on the project. But as there was a shortage of stonemasons, he started teaching the construction techniques to the local masons and completed the work. Talking about the physical form of this project, the site is divided into two parts, that is institutional and residential blocks that has been divided by the seasonal drainage. The seasonal drainage channel was visualized as a leisure valley. Courtyards and terraces were to ride the slopes and retain the continuity with the land beyond the site. The leisure valley was thought as the primary focus for informal interaction for entire community with stepped ghats, shades, and flowers. The second characteristic of the element was compact planning of the building around the linked courtyards.
There are total 6 courts in the whole institute, which are the study court, the public court, the academic court, the faculty court, and 2 residential courts. The nature of these courts resulted from an analysis of the primary activities of the building. Some of the major design strategies which are used in the campus building are: the campus exhibits the conventional design elements of the region. Native courtyard planning has been adopted to provide better ventilation and interaction opportunities for users. Locally available pinkish gray granite and other local stones were quarried from nearby villages. IIHMR exhibits the adoption of passive cooling strategies. Most of the workspaces are employed with a built-in evaporative cooling system to provide thermal comfort at a very little cost. There has been a great approach to create a microclimate inside the campus. Some of the major elements like the jalis are used as window frames, and building blocks are accessed through the pergolas, which are covered with the creepers as per the climate. Low-heighted glazing panels are also used to impart glare-free daylight. And solar panels are also being installed to complete the electrical energy requirements of the campus. The landscaping can be seen on the extreme corners of the site, which is done with respect to the climate of Jaipur.
The main campus consists of 2 blocks, academic block and residential block. Academic block, it further consists of a computer lab, a library, a documentation room, a management and development program center, an auditorium, conference hall, and seminar rooms. The spaces are interconnected in such a way that short routes are created, reducing the time to travel. The architect blended spaces using a sustainable approach. The architectural characteristics of the campus ensure better productivity of students by unintentional use of neo-vernacular principles. The first and the second floor consists of admin offices, lecture halls that are separated by a boardroom with a central courtyard.
Coming on to the hostel blocks, there are total 3 hostel blocks in the whole campus, which are planned so far to provide accommodation, one for long-term trainees and at the other end for faculties and senior training participants. The trainees hostel accommodation is in the form of flats. In each flat, 3 small study bedrooms share a common lounge and toilet facilities. The hostel blocks are surrounded by recreational spaces like badminton court, volleyball court, and basketball court on the south corner to create a buffer from the heat. Landscaping has been given a major thought on the entire campus, and a central garden has been provided on the northeast corner surrounding the whole cafeteria. The hostel rooms are of major 2 types. One are in the cubicle rooms. There are 3 individual rooms with a study table, chairs, wardrobes, beds, mattresses, and a common lobby and bathrooms. The other type is the sharing rooms, in which there is a room with 2 beds, 2 study tables, 2 wardrobes, and an attached toilet.
Some of the major details in this project is the boundary wall that is made of exposed rubber masonry that is surrounded on all 4 sides of the campus. Then talking about the flooring, different types of flooring has been used according to the space and needs. Like Kota stone has been used in the open spaces, while marble and chip flooring is used in the interior of the building. The pergola is constructed on the entrance of the academic block that creates a shaded pathway. The windows and the patterns of wall and fenestrations is coordinated with a planning grid. The windows are designed to reduce the glare yet ensure adequate amount of natural light. The ventilator below the windows sill serves a dual purpose. It is an adjustable outlet for air that is distributed to each space by evaporating cooling system. There are 2 stone concrete bridges that are constructed over the leisure valley that are further covered with tiles as the flooring. A large fountain area is created at the entrance of the campus that supports the landscape as well as creates a pleasant environment for the visitors.
The main entrance of the campus is through the northeast corner. A large fountain has been placed that emerges along with the parking. The main entrance leads to the 2 academic blocks, which are interconnected with the pergolas, and on the south side are the hostel blocks and the public courts. These are some of the on-site photographs. In these, horizontal bands of concrete on the elevation give a vertical scale to the buildings while stabilizing the whole masonry. Custom designed precast concrete jalis are held between precast chhajjas and sills. The entrance lobby has a touch of opulence with a marble floor and marble jali balustrades, and the main staircase preambulates around the double-heighted space, giving it a grand entrance.
The essence of the expressive qualities of the institute is found in the stone used here. And it is here that we can begin to unravel some of the interactions between design thought and its implementations when applied in practice. The campus is situated in composite climate of Jaipur, exhibits the adaptation of passive cooling strategies. To maximize the use of local resources, the design has drawn inspiration from the traditions of local architecture as well as the city's craft. It also utilized the existing landscape features and served it as a primary focus for interaction for communities. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll start with Brinda.
Okay, I went first last time.
I
thought it
think
was Anjan's.
yeah, we mixed up last time. So we can go with Anjanji this time. We can begin with Anjan.
Yeah, I don't mind either ways.
Okay. So Binda, will you start or?
Go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay. It is an interesting case. So my first thing is studying IIHMR. What do you really learn? In this is a interesting fact because it is built in a Jaipur. It is a kind of a institutional typology, and what architect Lal is trying to achieve is trying to identify a suitable typology which is more climate responsive, and he has adopted various techniques to it. So now you have studied this building, so I would really like to see the kind of things that he has done. What is the really the performance of this building and the kind of design agenda that he sets in? Do you think that it needs to be revisited, or the kind of system that he's adopted? He has adopted a various kind of climatic responsive system, but how that kind of a system interacts with the kind of functionality of the building, that is one. What happens to the its immediate context around it, because this building seems to be looking at the answers within itself. What about its surrounding context? And particularly if it is an institution, it has to send a message across. So what is the other kind of cultural and other kind of impact that it tries or it negates in its the design process? This is something which is worth maintaining, and how far his approaches is maintainable and operational. That's it.
Now Brinda can go next. Yeah. Brinda.
Okay, fine. Yeah, thank you. Yes, I think that the building definitely, you've chosen it for a purpose. I think that purpose is not coming out very strongly in the way you explained it. I mean, the building does justice to the context as such. But somehow I felt like when you were explaining it, it was very kind of, I'm not sure again, like I'm questioning for myself whether this was the right building to pick. It definitely has a contextual reference. It definitely does try, it does respond to, from the typology perspective, as already said, and the materials. But what I felt that you did not explain, and maybe there is more to it than what you said, is how the building that, about how many acres? About 14 acres, right? So that, how does it sit in the larger context? And how does it respond, beyond the site boundaries? Maybe a little bit more on that might have helped you to contextualize it, not just from the climate response and the typology perspective, but also from its locational perspective. And if I look at that, I feel like it is just a building with, it's a campus within the boundary of the site chosen. And I don't know how much it actually sits to the surrounding context in that sense, physically. That is something I was looking for.
Yeah. I I think if you could have talked about a little bit of context of the city, brought that perspective in how the city has developed, starting say from Amer to the walled city, and then how it has developed beyond the walled city, and then how these institutes have developed. Then you could have brought in the context of what's happening. And this was built in 1988, right? So then taking it further could have helped us to understand the entire thing. Because we are talking of context and inserts. Because I think, what area is this in? Sanganer.
Yes, Sanganer.
Sanganer, okay. So the context of Sanganer itself, it's a textile hub, it's a craft hub. So how those crafts have been used in this? Has any work been generated for people there? How has it responded to the local socio-economic, historic context? And then, of course, the physical aspect, the local materials, local technologies, especially when you're in Rajasthan, you don't really need to use concrete as much. How has the roof insulation been done, which is a traditional way of doing it? So all those aspects need to come in, like you need to also study that this is the way the tradition was, and this is what has happened in this building.
So the students can go ahead and answer, please.
So firstly, talking about the question, like the performance of the building and the techniques which have been used influencing the culture. So for that, the architect has the major concern of using vernacular techniques of Rajasthan in a different way. The neo-vernacular techniques have been used. So for that, there is a mix of elements and mix of elements from Rajasthan and some of the other elements. Just like there is a use of jalis in the windows. So these jalis have been used for multiple purpose. To give a pattern to enhance the elevation of the building, keeping in mind the passive cooling techniques for which it was actually used at earlier times. And in the same way, there's like a microclimate being created with a water body and a bridge which is supported on that. And also when we come through the landscaping, so keeping the climatic aspects of Rajasthan, these things are also been done. So these are the major design strategies which were used. And also one of the major things is that the stone which was used was the locally available stone, and for that when there were no labor, so the architect trained the laborers himself, so that it could become easy and it could provide some occupation to the local people out there.
Talking about the contextual reference and how does it go with the surroundings. It has been situated beyond beside the airport road, where the one more schools are being also constructed. And talking about the local resources, so the architect Ashok B. Lal himself came to Rajasthan and selected a particular stone, and because he couldn't found much labors for the stone masonry, so as my fellow mate said, he himself trained the local masons to do the work for the stone masonry. So many people were employed due to this construction.
Okay, what was that stone?
The local stone, the natural stone bees.
What is the name? There are three kinds of stones available.
The pinkish granite stone, which was locally available, and the other The other material which was used was also locally available, so it was quarried from there only.
I mean, of course, it could be possible that the stonemasons were not available, but we used them a lot from 87 onwards in Jaipur and Amer. So that's one aspect that I just want to bring that forth. And you have not done your study. See, more important thing is that you need to have studied all this. Then you could have easily shown us in your analysis that this is what was the traditional stone masonry, this is what it was, this is the way the stone jalis were done from this stone, this is the way the lime was done, this is, so I'm not commenting on the architecture or architect. To me, what is important is how you have studied, how you have analyzed, and what is the effort that you have made to understand that context and then bring this building into it. Because just doing a water body or fountain in front in that huge driveway will only cool that part. We need to cool the courtyards, etc., which are there. Each courtyard, if you have 6 courtyards, you need to cool them. Evaporative cooling, we know, is very effective in that region. So these are the studies you have to do. And then compare it with what's there.
All right, so we'll move to the next group.
Yep.
Thank you.
Maybe we should. Hey, NASA team, how are we doing with time? I think we have seen
Yes, sir.
the 15th, right?
Just
As per my count, we have seen 14 already. I'm going by 1, 2, 3 count, not by your L.I.K count, 39 to 43.
So we still have 9 left.
In your
9.
opinion,
14 are done.
This is the
14
15th.
if 14 are done, we have another 6 left. 21 Parul total.
But not 23? Okay.
Oh, 1 minute. What's the total? 21, am I right? Yeah.
It's 23.
Hey, is it 23? Okay,
Oh. Good.
The list
Here,
says 23.
Okay. And I will move on to the next. I think we are doing good with time. I think we are.
So we are good with time. After group number 39, we can take a small break.
Okay. All right. Let's.
L.I.K 39, please present.
Yes, sir. Should we share the screen? Hello?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
yes, of course. Yes, yes. Start. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Kannada University. Okay.
Sir, should I start?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah,
Yes.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. As we see, Evolve Back, which depicts our title and which in turn give us a message which says that going back to our origins is the best thing to do right now, because in today's world we can see much of the booming architecture which in just designs for the newness, or what we can say, the trend going on has to be followed. That's the designing process of the today's architecture. Then as we say, when we evolve back or go into the regional level or local level, we see the architecture which is developed with the development of the region or the locality. They both run on the same track in development and changes. And this is very sustainable for this time. And as we can see the sheet, half of this part of is of Vitthal Temple, which is from Hampi. It's a World Heritage Site, and the right side of the part is the admin block of our site, which is the Kannada University. We can see good resemblance in their planning and designing and their architecture. So going to the next site, Hampi. We have selected a site from Hampi. So giving some information about Hampi. Hampi is a city located in Karnataka, which was the capital of the Vijayanagar Empire at the in ancient times. Also, the selected site which we have selected is the Kannada University, which is located south of Hampi, with an average campus of about 650 acres. And the climate of the Hampi is most of the time it's dry and moderate, but due to the vast boulders and mountainous terrain that they are present, it's during the hot seasons it becomes very hot, and during the monsoons are very harsh. Also, the evolution of the site we have taken, that is the Kannada University. It was firstly situated in the Vijayanagar kingdom, which is located in Hampi, and the Virupaksha temple complex, which is again a World Heritage Site located in the same area. So the university was initially located in the Virupaksha temple complex, which is consisted of the market area, then the colonnaded mandapas around it. In such mandapas, the university was initially situated, but after some time, due to the presence of Tungabhadra river in the vicinity of the temple complex, it was flooding. Very occurrence of the flood is very what we can say. It's very every season of the monsoon has floods in it. That's why the working of the university was disturbed every time. So it was then in 1993, it was then situated on a new site, which is the present site, which is south of Hampi. So coming to the next sheet, the brief interpretation. So as we have written, infill or fill in, as we can say, architecture is not just erecting structures, but designing a structure or a design which fits in a scenario or the context behind it. That's very important. And but in today's world, as I said earlier, the trend has to be followed, has become very vital, and designing the new has also taken overpowered over the local architecture, or we can say the conventional architecture of a particular area. And after that, for I can say that the Nav University, which is Kannada University Hampi, is situated and constructed wholly of the local architecture, and the local context is used very very effectively, we can say, and the material used in it is also the local granite. Also, the area is randomly placed or selected, and the structures are as we follows. And there is also some sciography from the courtyards of the admin block. So the use of courtyards, which has done very prominently in our structures, which gives us a good light ventilation and also air ventilation.
So as we told before, the Kannada University has so many buildings and structures in it. And among them, the most important comes is the administration building. Administration building is actually named after a well-known person during the Vijayanagar Empire, whose name was Kriya Shakti. Why this particular building is named as Kriya Shakti is, Kriya Shakti was the main aid of the administrative arrangement during the Vijayanagara Empire during the rule of Harihara I. So in aspect of respecting him, the name Kriya Shakti was given. And if we compare the space planning of the Vitthal temples in the Hampi and the space planning of the administration building, find the similarities of both the structures, we got to know that that particular structure is divided into three parts, that is Mahamandapa, Navrang Mandapa, and Garbha Mandapa. Mahamandapa, being the starting point of the structure, comprises of stairs, pillared entrance foyer, entrance courtyard, and the reception area. Navrang Mandapa, as we know, Navrang Mandapa comes in the center of the temple and totally stands on the pillars itself. So even in the administration building, we get to see that the whole structure at the center is standing on 18 pillars, which also emphasizes the vernacular architecture of the Hampi. And Garbha Mandapa. In Vitthal temple, Garbha Mandapa is the place where the main statues or the sculptures of that particular god or goddess is placed. Same way, Garbha Mandapa in the administration building plays an important role because all the high officials' office is also placed in the Garbha Mandapa itself. Now you can see there is a sketch of the facade of the administration building. So if we compare both the structures, the facade of Vitthal temple and administration building is kind of similar. The facade is made up of stonework itself, and the stone which is used is also a granite stone.
You have 2 minutes to finish the presentation.
Now,
yes, sir.
You have 2 minutes more to finish the presentation.
Okay,
sir.
So, keeping in mind of the structures, the whole structures of the Kannada University stands on the pillars. Pillars are the main aspects of the whole structure because in Hampi, most of the structures are stands on the pillars and also plays an important part of the. And these pillars are particularly made of the granite boulders, which are regionally found in the Hampi itself.
So here we can say the arrangement of the pillars or the pillared mandapa halls, and then the beams which are also of stone and granite. Also some jari work has been done, which resembles from the Vitthal temple architecture. And so here we can see a 3D view of the admin block. Again, this is another structure we have selected. It's based on the Trikuta form of the Trikuta form, which is a prominent type of poem which is observed in Karnataka. So it is divided in 3 stanzas. So this building is also divided in 3 spaces. After that, these are the sections, and prominent feature is the cavity walls, which is used in this structure, which is made of the outer layer is made of thin stone cladding. The insulation is made from mud, and inner layer is of brickwork. And these are the wooden doors which are present there. This is another building. This is a visual arts building, which is a fusion of RCC as well as the stone pillared halls, and also some form has been used, circular forms has been used, which enhances the creativity and supports the artistic nature of the building. After this, these are the sections. It includes a dome, which is made up of acrylic boards, and the joining details have been placed here. The stone and the capital is placed with some mortar between it. These are the art galleries present in the visual arts building. After this, this is the fine arts department, which is also based on some Jainism style. So we can see a torna built in just the entrance of it, and the structure is also staggered square plan. These are the sketches. There is also a deep stump present there. This is some tribal art, which is done on the fine arts building, and the plan we can see in this sheet is building which is adjacent to the fine arts building. This resembles the local elephant stables which are present in Hampi, and these are the window details. This is the canteen present there. The use of courtyard has very well been done in this building, and also the vegetation or which is present in the local area is planted here. That is the neem and mango tree, which enhances the atmosphere in the canteen. And also the plan is based on the square planning, which we can see in the local area and the temple architecture of that place. These are the sections, and a truss steel is used for the roofing of this structure. This is the open amphitheater, which is called Navranga. This is based on the king's meetings, which the king used to take meetings by gathering his ministers. The same concept has been used here, and as we can say, the ornamental stone pillars, which create a beautiful scene or a backdrop for the performers. And then the use of natural contour is has been done very beautifully. We can see in the section, natural contour has been very beautifully used and utilized. Also, there's a basement for the stage where the performance can get attached. Here we can see sketches of it and the tribal.
Scroll down the sheets and then
yes, sir. Yes, sir. This is the last sheet, the conclusion. So we are confident that in today's world, as we go for the newness, the local architecture, which is developed with the flow of the human nature, is kind of diminishing. So there's a very good need for to nurture and preserve this. These are the images of the Kannada University structures. As here we can see the massive scale and beauty of it. Then these are the domes, the 16th number images of admin block. We can see the resemblance of it with the local temple architecture and the courtyards, and how the stone beams and pillars have been placed. So these are the collected data we collected or measured from the site.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. That's the last slide.
Thank you. So we'll start with Parul Ben.
Yes, ma'am.
Last time, no? Anyway. Instead of going into the entire complex of the university, I had just analyzed a couple of buildings and gone into the details of the construction techniques, why this kind of a plan and how has it helped in terms of climatologically, and where the stones came from, also encircling and talking about how local this was, including the craftspeople.
Yes, ma'am.
Have added to your learning. And
okay, so
why did we have these kind of plans? And why the height, and what were the proportions that they worked with? Because all these things is what makes the buildings look harmonious.
Yes, ma'am.
And like you kept on saying that it was very comfort, I mean, traditional, agreed, you use local, but again, you need to understand why and what. And that's what I feel the L.I.K is for.
So should I answer now?
No, not now.
Yes, ma'am.
Anjanji.
As usual, always find it very difficult to gather our thoughts. So, primarily, this looks like an imitation of a traditional technology without understanding the typology of it. Because if this is inspired, then that inspiration has to be something, because it has a different kind of a purpose. Kannada University has a different kind of a purpose. Well, both are monuments, yes, but how you interpret the volume, all you have seen and drawn or documented is a three-dimensional model grid, and this kind of a grid structure, even Kanvin they have used, Ajay Chaudhary has used, people are using, Uttam Jain has used extensively in terms of these grids. But the interpretation of that grids from the temple structure is what is the actually design insight. So that, as Parul is mentioning, that these elements, if you use it in a different model, different proportions, it creates a harmonious whole. That is the basic craft tradition. When you are studying this building, I thought you will be trying to look at how traditionally the temples are being constructed and how it is now being interpreted. But instead of showing us various examples of the similar kind of feature and not going into critically into that, you miss the whole concept. That why should we actually go by that? This is Ganapati Sthapati or Sompura. They are actually doing it day in and day out. So what is there? Because they have the whole traditional knowledge, building systems knowledge, every contextual local material knowledge, which you don't have. So your purpose of studying this is primarily to get in there, to understand that knowledge and the learning of that system. Where is that? Because when you have selected this, you should actually know exactly what you are looking at. Next time, always look at it sensitively. That's all.
Okay. I have a slightly different type of comment for you, or rather question. While you may have received lots of comments on how you could have looked at the architectural features and then instead of just talking about similarities, maybe analyzed it more deeper, I can add just one more aspect with that with respect to the scale. Like if you can, the scale at which the temple architecture works and the scale at which this institutional buildings, each of them work, are fairly different. You can't expect it to be similar. So if you had compared it from that perspective, the spatial qualities within the building itself. But to add to that, what I was looking for was, anybody who visits Hampi will know that there is a experiential quality to when you walk from one of the buildings, like the temple, the Virupaksha temple, to the Krishna temple, or to any other, to the stables or wherever. There are pathways, and it is kind of the experiential quality of walking through, or however you go, whether you're on a bicycle, typically people bicycle in that area. So that, and how do you negotiate with the area in terms of the site, the levels, the topography, the views, the hill, the whole aspect of that experience. If you had translated that into analyzing the way the buildings within the Hampi University site itself were relating to each other, and if they were, I don't know, I haven't visited the university, but if they were if there was something that was kind of relatable with respect to that experiential quality. Maybe you could have highlighted that. And that may have been another aspect that could have helped you to root the contextualism for the building that you have chosen, besides the architectural features and the other qualities.
So
that's it.
So the students can answer now. They can.
Yeah, ma'am.
Who were the architects? I've just a quick query. Who were the architects for this?
So there were various architects, and mostly they were from the local area, and the artisans and the workers. They used the local workers present there, and also the material is of a local style. Also the stone.
I got my answer. Yeah. Carry on for others.
So about the ma'am kind of planning which is done here, we can see ma'am as we visit Hampi or the surrounding area, most of the structures which are traditional and cultural. So that the cultural context has been used in the university and also the traditional aspects of it. Because it's of an institutional structures, and there is a connection between the teachers and students and in the university. The same culture which was present in the Virupaksha temple complex, the older university, because in olden times the temples itself were the knowledge spreaders of that time. Yes. So that was they tried to inherit or propagate that tradition. So that's why they have selected that kind of architecture, and they have built the structures on that context, ma'am.
Right. So what I was asking was that how do you represent that through your drawings? Like, that the temple is an institution, so is this as a university, but how does it translate? Okay, that is something that should come out through your analysis and the drawings.
Yes,
okay?
ma'am. So as we experienced, ma'am, in the university, we stayed there for some days. The mutual understanding or the bonding between the students and the teachers was of a different kind, as we observe from in our local area. So the respect the teacher was gaining, or the students were so devoted towards their particular classrooms or the structures in which they study. They have a different kind of bonding with it. We observe that as the students, they clean the surrounding area. They clean the interiors, exteriors. They also keep the landscape good. So we concluded that due to the use of the local style or the traditional or the tradition which was kept in the structures or the designing of process of the structures, the same qualities or the connectedness to the earth has been kept in the structures of the university, and also it creates different aura. One can feel the difference between them, and also the structures are vastly they are situated in random different spots, and the area between them, there are roads connecting those, but also they have created rough paths through the jungle. There is a rough vegetation which is a local style. They have not damaged or discarded any vegetation there. The natural life, flora and fauna, that has been kept intact, and they we can also walk through the vegetation area and also feel the different, we can see when we enter a structure, we can see the earthiness or we can observe or analyze the earthiness we get through entering the structures, and also the connection between them. After that, ma'am, coming to the climatic conditions, as it is made up of stone and the uses of traditional courtyard architecture, which creates a good amount of light ventilation, and the air ventilation is also carried out very good. And most of the time, no artificial light is required for the interiors of the structures due to the natural lighting, or the lowers. They have used lowers in between. Also, the wind flow has been kept in mind, which enhances, ma'am, the quality of the structures.
Okay.
After this, ma'am, the design insights we can see. Every structure has its own some kind of energy, or the energy as we visit the temples of a particular style, or we can say Dravidian style, the intricate carvings, or the hugeness of the structures, that can also be experienced in these structures which we have selected, the Kannada University. As we see the images, ma'am, the sheer scale of the structure is observed, and we can feel and different type of aura or energy in ourselves, ma'am, which we feel in the temples or any traditional or cultural structure which we are present in the vicinity of the university. After that, ma'am,
that's exactly why I wanted you to study the proportions, the principles of design, because all that does create a certain kind of energy. So you need to also get into that when you're doing this. You felt it, so you need to analyze it. Okay, get into the depths, talk to the architects, and then go further.
Yes, ma'am.
Just doing the drawings and studying so many buildings doesn't help. You've done a lot of work. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying, when you feel this, you could just go and investigate why you felt it. In my house, which is designed as per Vastu principles, based on IIHMR calculations, which is not just blackmailing Vastu. Anyone who walks into our house feels at peace, and they always say it feels like, it's always been there, and you just feel the sense of harmony in it. And I know why that has come about, because we have a module that we have worked with in every aspect of this building. And that was and modules did not come just from the West. We had invented theory of modules thousands of years ago.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, what you're explaining is a lot of intangible aspects, and those intangibilities is hard to represent, but you have to find a way, since you have gone there, and you have to figure what was it that brought about that ambience that you experienced, and that intangibility. That is also very crucial, because, cultural aspects can be expressed through intangible means. And how does it then get translated, or there are some certain symbolisms that are part of the architectural features, right? So expressing that becomes significant.
And it is science-based. It's science-based more because it has been tested over time. We just feel that only the scientific laboratories can talk about science. This is a living laboratory, which has been experimented for hundreds of years. And here we are only talking about a science which has experimented over 10 years, and the medicines for 5 years. And, and then we accept that as a science, but not this as a science. This is something that you need to understand, and you have gone so far, you need to go deeper.
Yes, ma'am, sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. So we'll now proceed to the next group.
Thank you. Hello, is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
So talking about Shrujan, Shrujan is an intervention, which means surgeon. Surgeon in Sanskrit, that is creating something that has been known as an integral part of a locality. Shrujan, the threads of life, talks about the women empowerment, widespread and conservation of art typology, reflection of the traditional craft, culture, and the prevalence of Kutchi people in the face of disastrous earthquake was the basis of the venture. Bujodi. Then and now, Bhuj is known for the various types of embroideries-based communities. The intervention is located in Bujodi Gang, which is 10 kilometers away from the Bhuj. The building was made by looking forward to the seismic conditions of the Bhuj since 1819 to 2001. Bhuj has an amazing characteristics of bungas, the mirror works, the lipan, and thatch roof. These thatch roof and bamboos works as an insulation, thermal insulation materials, and the basic materials such as mud and bamboos are incorporated to regulate the heating methods. Now, the settlement pattern varies from one area to the different area, along with the Bernoulli's effect. Bhuj is being found with a typical section of the land which has a house, ota, street, ota, and then a house, which has a proper stack ventilation type of thing along with the use of the courtyards. The vegetation and the flora or fauna also varies from the coconut tree, neem, people, and bamboo. As said earlier, Bhuj is very much famous for the embroidery works. It has mainly 12 communities which works for the embroidery. All the communities have evolved from 1819 to 2020. The evolution has been clearly seen that earlier there was a very micro work for the embroideries, and now it is more bold, large, and such. The reason we are mostly finding the embroideries have geometric patterns, animals, and floral patterns. The reason behind this is the migration. People used to migrate, and when they used to observe things around them, they used and incorporate them into the embroideries. Now, as I said earlier, that the embroidery is being evolved, it is still passed from mother to daughter as a system. So the map of the India shows the various types of embroideries being used in each and every state of India. Now, talking about the 12 communities, each and every community has various embroidery patterns. The communities include Mochis, Souks, Rabaris, Jadejas, Jat, Meghwad, Mutwa, Meghwad Marwadas, Meghwad Maru, Soda, Harijan, and Ahirs. The Ahirs are the most of the communities which are being found in Bujodi. The most of the embroidery which they adopt is which is embellished with birds, Sakdi Tako, and Bakhyo Tako. Why Shrujan? So the brief stated the infill architecture is rededication of an urban environment with respect to context, climate, culture, and community belief. The architecture of the intervention responds to context. Also, it evokes to the desert type arcs through massive, hence controlled ochre yellow colored walls. The intervention follows historic parameters in terms of spaces, heritage conservation in terms of embroidery work, planning and regulations, the urban approaches, the site boundaries, the vernacular architecture, which has been incorporated in a modern way in the intervention, the hierarchy of spaces in form of open courtyard, corridors, retail stores, and whatnot, the ventilation and environmental sustainability, the energy efficiency, color concept, and the sustainable aspect. An interesting fact about Bujodi or about Shrujan is that as we all know, Kutch was being facing most of the natural calamities as earthquakes and drought. In 1969, Kutch faced a drought, in which a Chandaban, the social worker, wanted to help the
community. So the giver had a huge heart, but the takers were not freeloaders. So there was a midday found that the Chandaban will become a mediator, which will sell their art and convert the local art to the national one. This is how Shrujan was established in 1969. Accordingly, in 2001, the history repeated itself, and again the Shrujan building got demolished. Once again, the work was continued. Chandaman was since between the mediator, but the new building in 2004 was established by Uday Andaria and Mosni Andaria by Indigo Architects. Talking about the building, the site area of the building is 8,093 square meter, and the built up is 16%, which is 2,000 square meter. The site approach, the site has mainly two entries, and the site approach is from a highway. The major context has a highway and a power station. The inferences according to the study and analysis of Shrujan was that the incorporation of natural light in form of the fenestration on northern and southern facades, the courtyard, the design principles as balance and emphasis, considering the seismic stabilities in form of proportion of rectangles and expansion joints, the functionality of the functions and the hierarchy of spacings along with the movement from private to semi-private and public spaces, the wind direction and active and passive cooling ideas. The wind direction, the active and passive cooling ideas by providing wind scoop and exhaust fans on the southern and the western side. The site here found is 893 square meters, where the main intervention lies in the western side of the site. The entry is being propagated with a lot of vegetation and the parking in the entrance. The whole building is surrounded by a huge courtyard, which forms an emphasis over there. There is an existing quarters. Behind the quarters, we can see the lot of vacant land, which is left to the nature for the development. But some amount of the land is used in agricultural land currently, with the veggies or everything which is being grown here is used in the canteen on the southern side. In the southern side, there is a bunga. Bungas are used for the visitors or for the artisans who want to stay there. The bungas are evolved, like the bungas earlier had a conical dome and was circular, but here there is a porch which is being added in the bunga. These are the shadow patterns, how the shadow is being formed at 12 a.m., 12 p.m. and 6 p.m. Talking about the ground floor in the entrance, there is a buffer which provides a pause point. The retail store, there is a glass facade in the entrance which makes an interesting entry and shows the display. The retail shop and the display area is combined together. There are these workshops which are double height and also has a curved wall which provides diffused light. The admin area is located on the eastern side of the building. There is an alley which collects the rainwater harvesting, which is located on the ground floor at this location. There is a ramp which leads us to the workshop and the admin area, which is a hollow ramp being secured by planks. The fenestrations on the southern side are have small sections made by using grills. The wind scoops on the southern side, like there are 4 wind scoops, 2 on the southern side and 2 on the western side. There is mezzanine. As this workshop has a curved wall which provides diffuse light, there is a mezzanine too in this. The ground floor plan has a grid pattern of column and beam placing. The flooring of the intervention differs from Kota stone, rough Kota stone, gravels, mosaic, and brown tiles. The flooring pattern differs from function to function. The vegetation, the architects have tried to grow more amount of vegetation to retain the coolness for the building, as the climate there is hot and dry. To achieve diffuse light, there are other ways also, like providing a small ventilation building which reflects the light, and a diffuse light is provided which is less harsh. There is a entrance, like there is the wall in the entrance which is a red clay color painted wall which works as an emphasis on the entrance. The pathways And the axis, like we can see here, the pathways are the observation and the pause points, which provide a visual connections. The movements are controlled, like there is a lot of admin and staff movement. The public movement is gradated from that, and the artist movements is controlled till the workshop. The axis are, there are three major axes, which also works as the visionary axis, and we can watch everything from each like certain point. As I talked about the courtyard is in the center, and which has a brick pattern, which is very raw here. The first floor has a waiting area, design style, and fabric dyeing area along with the guest room. The grid pattern remains same. There is a provision of expansion joints, as I said earlier, that this Kutch faces very seismic, has tectonic conditions. So the expansion joints are provided inside the building so that there is less chances of colliding to each other. Again, here the flooring varies from function to function. In the basement, there is a conservation lab, a textile conservation area, and the library. Again, the first floor, the circulation is being controlled. Only admin and staff can have the place, can like access the place. The rainwater harvesting is the major thing which we can find, which is very interesting, that the water is being collected from all the different level of the slabs. The flooring is the mosaic flooring. The water is sent to the chambers, then again to the another lower level, and then the water is transferred to the nali on the ground floor, and then it is collected into the underground water, which can be seen here, that the water is sent to this section, then to the chamber here, and then to the underground water tank. There is also great, amazing provision of wastewater and plumbing detail. This is
Please
how
finish this fast. The time's up, so.
Okay, sorry. These are the elevations, the northern elevation and the western elevation. They have also tried to do the massing, like to use inclined walls, like the inclined walls, which works as wind cutters, the wind detail of the wind towers, and the amphitheater on the above level has a curved slope, which can be shown in this section, which is here. These are the details of the water channel and the ramp floorings. The views which was being extracted from the 3D SketchUp model, and the existing views. The on-site drawings. I would like to show the actual process of the work, how it was being worked, like the intervention, how it looked, how spaces worked, the red wall, the retail shop, the flooring of the courtyard, the rainwater harvesting with mosaic tilings, thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll start with Mr. Anjan Mitra, please.
This is the same project that we have seen earlier.
Yes, it is the same.
It is the same. So the comments are almost similar, but you have articulated well at least those concerns, because you have managed to explain them, your bunga, your lipan, all that, and your thatch roof. But somehow that in the final executed project is not either referred or ignored, so which is something which is not there. Rainwater harvest system, this time you have explained it much better, and it is a very traditional practice in Rajasthan. In all the Shekhawat Havelis and every other places, they have a rainwater collecting system which is very pronounced. So probably you could actually try to refer that how traditional rainwater harvesting system is being incorporated here or not. And in the earlier, so what are the things that you see here that doesn't work, or from the contextual positions it could have been incorporated to get a much richer connection with the local context. And that is all that I can talk.
Okay.
Should I answer or
No, just
Let Brinda.
yeah. So I also have similar comments. I think you've better articulated it this time round, in terms of, when you started off with talking about the local community, the settlements, you studied them in detail. But then I was waiting for you to start talking about how they have been referenced or used within the design itself more strongly. That connect, I was hoping that you could have spoken a little more about, because you identified all the communities, and you identified even the patterns of their embroidery work and other things. But how is it then relevant to the building itself and the design of the building itself? Anything that are there any references to those? I didn't see you explain that part. Definitely the water system, you really brought it out clearly this time. And use of the spaces, like each of the spaces within, how are they programmed and how do the people actually use the space? This is the question I'd asked even earlier. So that would be also useful to analyze. That's it.
Yeah. Are they wind towers or wind catchers or exhausts?
Ma'am, there is a combination of towers and exhaust fans together.
Agreed.
And
But
they are catchers.
it can't be in the same tower.
Yes, catchers. They are wind catchers.
They are wind catchers. Okay.
Yes,
Then they're in the right direction. Okay. Well, I have nothing else to add besides whatever we had commented last time and whatever the other jurors have said. There's nothing more to add. Your analysis was good, but you need to connect it with the building.
Yes, ma'am.
So why did you select this building?
Ma'am, the reason why to select this building was that mainly it had an art conservation type of thing, और वो women empowerment को promote कर रहे थे. So the reason was Bujodi is like Bujodi is a place जहाँ पे this place still women are not allowed to go out from the home and work at certain places. So still in Bujodi, in Gaon, the people outside their houses, the women used to do those embroideries और वो लोग अपने घर के बाहर वो products sell करते थे. So to promote this art, to promote Kutchi embroidery, and this इतना अच्छा जो Shrujan ने अपना establishment हुआ, that was the reason.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So there was the question that what are the things that contextually वो कैसे work कर रहा है? So this is the same thing. Contextually, it is working as the sand dunes. There's a volume of building. It has an abstract form of sand dunes, and it is also colored with an ochre colored walls. Climatically, it supports the climates by using elements such as rainwater harvesting, then the wind scoops, wind catchers, ideally, the exhaust fans, and elements like the parameters which provide more amount of light and everything. Then how they had been that what are the references of embroideries and communities. So since this is since 1969, जो communities है they are getting distinct और उनके जो embroideries है वो धीरे धीरे कम हो रहे हैं. तो those are the references कि अभी तक these Ahir community with embellished beadings, mirror works, and some forms like flowers and everything. So the Ahir community is mainly found here. And the spaces are working like the ground floor has a more of the public accessibility rather than the private. Like there is this retail shop and display area. Then there is the admin area, like wo ek do different direction mein hai, and there is the centralized workshop so that people can examine. Even if we went to the intervention, we examined that how the work happens there. And on the first floor, there is totally a private place which has an auditorium which is only being accessed by the public, and there is a designing cell and other things which are just private and can be used by staff members.
Which you explained already. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's not repeat it.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Just wanted to say something. Say often in these trophies, two schools, not knowing the other school has chosen, two schools end up choosing the same project.
Yes,
Wanted to
sir.
assure you, and also the other, the Hilltop School also has been done by
Yeah.
two students. In case if they're listening in the YouTube or wherever, want to ensure you that the fact that you are the second to present makes no difference to the jury. The jury will look at each of the students' work, not on a
Individual.
comparative basis, on an absolute basis to see what is the work like. Just want to assure you that.
Okay, sir.
Next.
Thank you.
Welcome, welcome. Yeah, NASA team.
Yes, sir. We can
Yes,
have
sir.
a small 10 minutes break now and then we'll continue.
That's right. Okay, we'll come back again. Now it's 4:35, nearly 4:40 now. Okay. Last time when you said break,